You understand every word. You can read English. You can watch a movie without subtitles. You can text a stranger online and sound almost fluent. But the moment a real person stands in front of you and asks, "So, tell me about yourself," something breaks. Your mind goes blank. Your throat tightens. The words you know so well simply refuse to come out. And here is the strange part. You already knew this would happen. You felt it before, in interviews, in classrooms, in front of people you wanted to impress the most. So let me ask you something. If you already know the grammar, if you already understand the meaning, why can't you speak? What if the problem was never your brain? What if this whole time you've been training the wrong muscle? Somewhere right now, there is a person exactly like you, working a job that pays just enough to survive, watching people online who speak 2, 3 languages, traveling, closing deals, living the life this person quietly dreams about. Every night they promise themselves, "Tomorrow, I'll practice. Tomorrow, I'll finally speak without fear." But tomorrow comes, and the fear is still there. So they open one more grammar book, one more app, one more course that promises fluency in 30 days, and nothing changes. Here's the truth nobody tells you. You don't have a knowledge problem. You have a training problem. Understanding a language happens in your mind. Speaking a language happens in your mouth, your breath, your timing, your confidence. And none of that improves by reading one more rule. Today, that changes. Not because you'll learn something new about English, but because you're about to learn something new about yourself, about how real change actually happens in language and in life. We're going to walk through 10 lessons. Some of them will feel uncomfortable. Some will challenge things you've believed for years. But by the end, you won't just understand why your mouth has been silent. You'll know exactly what to do to set it free. Because somewhere inside you, there is already a version of yourself who speaks with total confidence. This video is how you find them. Lesson 1. Your brain already knows the words. Your mouth doesn't move that way yet. Think about this for a moment. A baby understands hundreds of words long before it can say a single one. It hears mother for months before its mouth can shape that sound correctly. Understanding always arrives first. Speaking arrives later, and only through repetition. This is not a flaw in you. This is how every human being on earth has ever learned to speak in any language. Most people never realize this simple fact. Speaking is not a thinking skill, it is a physical skill. Think about a piano player. She doesn't think her way through a piece. Her fingers already know where to go because she has played those same notes thousands of times. Her hands were trained, not just her mind. Your mouth is no different. Every sound in English, every teach, every stretched vowel, every rhythm requires specific muscle movements that your mouth has simply never practiced enough. You are not failing at English. You are asking untrained muscles to perform a skilled task instantly under pressure. Of course they hesitate. Here's the shift you need to make today. Stop asking, "Do I understand this?" and start asking, "Have I said this out loud again and again until it becomes automatic?" Because here's the truth. You can memorize 1,000 grammar rules and still freeze in conversation, but say one simple sentence out loud 50 times in different situations, and it will come out of you naturally, without thinking, for the rest of your life. Real fluency is not stored in your memory. It is stored in your muscles. So from this moment forward, treat your mouth like an athlete treats their body, something that must be trained, repeated, and pushed, not just informed. Remember this: understanding is the seed, speaking is the tree, and a tree only grows through repetition, sunlight, and time. Lesson 2. Grammar is not broken. Your mouth is untrained. Let me ask you something. How many grammar books have you already finished? How many rules have you memorized about tenses, articles, and prepositions? And yet, when a real conversation happens, your mind still goes empty. This is because you've been solving the wrong problem for years. Imagine a man who wants to learn how to swim. Every day, he sits by the pool and reads a book about swimming techniques. He studies the physics of buoyancy. He memorizes the names of every stroke, but he never gets in the water. One day, someone pushes him in, and he sinks. Not because he lacked knowledge, because knowledge was never the missing piece. Practice was. This is exactly what happens to English learners across the world. They collect knowledge like trophies, believing that one more rule will finally unlock fluency. But fluency isn't unlocked by more information. It's unlocked by more output. Actually speaking out loud again and again, even when it feels clumsy. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Studying more grammar at this point in your journey is not moving you forward. It is simply making you feel productive while you avoid the thing that actually scares you, opening your mouth and speaking imperfectly in front of someone. Most people never realize that mistakes are not the opposite of fluency. Mistakes are the path to fluency. Every fluent speaker you admire made thousands of embarrassing mistakes before they ever sounded confident. So here is your new rule. For every hour you spend studying, spend at least 1 hour speaking. Alone, with a friend, with an app, even with your own reflection in the mirror. Because grammar was never broken. Your mouth was simply never given the chance to practice. Lesson 3. Fear is a muscle too, but so is courage. Here's the truth. It's not your English that's shaking, it's you. The fear you feel before speaking isn't really about grammar mistakes. It's about being seen, being judged, being exposed as someone still learning, still becoming. Let me ask you something. Have you ever rehearsed a sentence perfectly in your head, only to freeze the second you needed to say it out loud? That freeze isn't weakness. It's your nervous system protecting you from a very old, very human fear, the fear of embarrassment in front of others. Thousands of years ago, being judged by your group could mean losing food, shelter, safety. Your brain still treats social judgment like a threat to your survival, even when the danger is simply mispronouncing a word in a video call. Here's what most people never realize. Fear doesn't disappear because you become fluent. Fluent speakers still feel nervous before big conversations. The difference is they've trained themselves to act despite the fear, not after it disappears. Think about a firefighter walking into a burning building. Do you believe they feel no fear? Of course they feel it, but they've trained their body to move forward anyway because the mission matters more than the discomfort. Your mission is your future, a better job, real conversations, respect, a version of yourself who no longer stays silent out of fear. Every single time you speak despite the fear, that fear muscle gets a little weaker and your courage muscle gets a little stronger. Remember this: you don't need to eliminate fear to become fluent. You only need to keep speaking while it's still there. One day, you'll look back and realize the fear didn't vanish. You simply outgrew it. Lesson 4. Small reps beat big plans. Imagine two people who both decide on the same day to become fluent in English. The first person makes an enormous plan, 3 hours a day, a strict schedule, a complete transformation, starting Monday. By Wednesday, life gets in the way. He misses a day, then two, then he quietly gives up, feeling like a failure. The second person makes a much smaller promise, just 5 minutes of speaking out loud every single day. No excuses. 6 months later, who do you think speaks better? This is one of the most important lessons about discipline. Motivation is unreliable, but small, repeated action is unstoppable. Most people never realize that big goals fail, not because they're too ambitious, but because they demand more consistency than the person has built yet. You cannot lift 300 pounds on your first day at the gym, and you cannot speak fluently after one heroic study session either. Consistency beats intensity, always. Imagine a river slowly cutting through solid rock, not with force but with time and repetition. That river doesn't rush. It simply never stops. Your 5-minute daily habit is that river. It looks small. It feels almost insignificant. But it is quietly reshaping your ability to speak, one repetition at a time. So here is your practical action. Choose one small, unbreakable habit. Speak one sentence out loud when you wake up. Record 30 seconds of yourself speaking before bed. Something so small you have no excuse to skip it. Because in 6 months, the person who did 5 minutes every day will always outperform the person who planned 3 hours and did nothing. Remember this. The goal is never to be perfect today. The goal is to never miss twice. Lesson 5. Silence is costing you more than mistakes ever will. Here's a question worth sitting with. What has your silence already cost you? The opportunity you didn't apply for because the interview required English. The conversation you avoided because you were afraid of sounding foolish. The relationship, the job, the trip abroad, quietly slipping away, one silent moment at a time. We often imagine that mistakes are expensive. That saying the wrong word will cost us respect, embarrassment, judgment. But listen carefully. Mistakes are cheap. Silence is expensive. A mistake costs you a few seconds of discomfort. Silence costs you years. Think about it. Nobody remembers the small grammar mistake you made in a conversation last month, but you remember the opportunity you were too afraid to take. Imagine a locked door in front of you, and the only key is your voice. Every day you stay silent, that door stays locked, not because someone else is keeping it shut, but because you are. Most people never realize that fluency isn't really the finish line. Speaking up before you feel ready is the finish line. The people who become fluent aren't the ones who waited until they had no more mistakes to make. They're the ones who kept speaking through the mistakes because they understood something important. An imperfect sentence spoken is worth more than a perfect sentence never said. So today, ask yourself, what conversation have you been avoiding? What sentence have you been rehearsing in your head for weeks, but never said out loud? Say it today, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, because silence has already cost you enough. Lesson 6. Practice alone first. The mirror doesn't judge you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you spoke English out loud, alone, with no one watching? Most learners skip this step entirely. They wait until they're in front of another person to attempt their first real sentences, and then wonder why they freeze. That's like walking on stage for your very first performance with zero rehearsal. Here's the truth. Confidence is built in private before it's ever shown in public. Think about actors preparing for a film. Before a single camera rolls, they've said their lines hundreds of times, in their room, in the mirror, in the shower. By the time the cameras start, the words already feel like their own. You need the same rehearsal space, your mirror, your empty room, your walk home from work. These are your training ground. Speak to yourself. Describe your day out loud. Argue both sides of a topic alone in English. It may feel strange at first. That's completely normal. Here's what's happening beneath the surface. Every time you speak alone, your mouth is building the muscle memory it needs without the added pressure of being watched. You're separating two skills that most people combine too early, the skill of forming the sentence and the skill of saying it under pressure. Master the first one privately, then the second one becomes far less frightening. Remember this, nobody becomes confident in public before they've practiced in private. Not athletes, not speakers, not you. So tonight, stand in front of your mirror and say 10 sentences out loud about your day. It will feel awkward. That awkwardness is the sound of your fluency being built. Lesson 7. Every fluent person was once silent. Somewhere, right now, there is a confident English speaker, someone you admire, someone whose fluency seems almost effortless. But rewind their story far enough, and you'll find something surprising. They were once exactly where you are. Think about it. Every translator, every international business person, every immigrant who built a new life in a new language, they all began the exact same way you did. Confused, nervous, making painful mistakes in front of strangers. Here's a story worth remembering. Years ago, a young man moved to a new country, barely able to order food in the local language. He was mocked for his accent. He forgot words mid-sentence, constantly. Colleagues would sigh, waiting for him to finish a simple phrase. He kept speaking anyway. Not because it stopped being embarrassing. It didn't. He kept speaking because he understood something most people never accept. Fluency is not a gift given to the talented. It's a result earned by the persistent. Years later, that same man led meetings, negotiated deals, and mentored others in a language that once humiliated him daily. His story isn't rare. It's the story behind almost every fluent speaker in history. Most people never realize that fluent speakers aren't naturally gifted with language. They are simply people who refused to let early embarrassment become a permanent stop sign. So, the next time you compare yourself to someone fluent, remember, you're not seeing their beginning, you're seeing their reward. Your beginning looks exactly like theirs did. The only difference between where you are now and where they are now is time, repetition, and the refusal to quit speaking. Lesson 8. Your accent is not your enemy. Here's a belief that quietly destroys more confidence than any grammar mistake ever could. The idea that having an accent means you're not truly fluent. Let me ask you something. Have you ever admired someone specifically because of their accent? An actor, a musician, a leader whose voice carried something unmistakably their own? An accent is not broken English. An accent is proof that you speak more than one language, something most of the world will never accomplish. Think about this. Some of the most respected voices on earth, scientists, athletes, entrepreneurs, world leaders, speak English with strong accents from their home countries. Nobody in that room is thinking less of them. They are listening to what they say, not judging how they sound. The obsession with sounding perfectly native is often the real reason people stay silent. They believe that unless they sound exactly like someone from London or New York, they haven't truly succeeded. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Native speakers make grammar mistakes constantly. They mispronounce words. They forget vocabulary in their own language. Perfection was never actually the standard. You simply imagined it was. Your goal was never to erase where you come from. Your goal is to be understood, to connect, to communicate with confidence. So stop chasing an accent that doesn't exist and start chasing clarity, confidence, and connection. Remember this. The moment you accept your accent as part of your identity, not a flaw to hide, your fear of speaking begins to disappear. Because the world isn't waiting for you to sound like someone else. It's waiting to hear what you have to say. Lesson 9. Consistency turns struggle into skill. Imagine trying to start a fire using only a single match in the wind and giving up when the first spark doesn't catch. Now, imagine someone who keeps striking match after match, patiently, protecting each small flame until finally, the fire holds. Learning to speak fluently works the exact same way. Most learners quit right before the moment everything would have clicked. They speak for 2 weeks, feel frustrated by their mistakes, and decide, I'm just not good at this. What they don't realize is that struggle isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that real learning is happening. Think about this. Every difficult conversation you push through, every awkward sentence you force yourself to finish, these moments are not wasted. They are quietly rewiring your brain, strengthening the connection between thought and speech. Here's the truth about consistency. It doesn't feel dramatic. There's no single day where you wake up suddenly fluent. Instead, there are 100 small days where speaking feels just slightly easier than the day before, until one day, without noticing exactly when it happened, you realize the fear is gone and the words simply flow. Most people never realize that struggle and skill are not opposites. Struggle is the raw material skill is built from. The learners who succeed are rarely the most talented. They are simply the ones who kept striking the match day after day, refusing to let temporary frustration convince them to stop. So, commit to this. Even on the hard days, especially on the hard days, keep speaking, because the fire always looks impossible to start, right until the moment it finally holds. Lesson 10. The version of you who speaks fluently already exists. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself 1 year from now. Picture yourself walking into a room, an interview, a meeting, a conversation with someone you deeply respect, and speaking with total ease. No fear, no searching for words, just clear, confident communication. That version of you is not a fantasy. That version already exists, not in some distant future, but has a possibility living inside you right now, waiting for you to build the habits that bring them to life. Here's the truth. You don't need to become someone new to speak fluently. You need to train the person you already are, the same way an athlete trains a body that already has the potential for greatness. Think about a sculptor working on a block of stone. He doesn't create the statue from nothing. He simply removes everything that isn't the statue, patiently, day after day, until what was always hidden inside becomes visible to everyone. Your fluent self is inside that stone. Every day you practice, every sentence you speak despite fear, every small repetition, you are removing the doubt, the silence, the hesitation that has been covering who you truly are. Most people never realize that the difference between them and the confident speakers they admire isn't some special talent. It's simply time invested in training, repeated with patience. So let me ask you one final question. What would your life look like exactly 1 year from today if you spoke to that version of yourself starting right now? That person is not waiting for permission. They're waiting for you to start, and you already know exactly how. Let's walk back through everything you now understand. Your mouth needed training, not more information, because speaking is a physical skill, built through repetition, not memorized through rules. Grammar was never broken. It simply couldn't replace practice. Fear will never fully disappear, but courage grows every time you speak despite it. Small, consistent habits will always outlast big plans that collapse under their own weight. Every moment of silence has quietly cost you more than any mistake ever could. Practicing alone, in private, builds the confidence you'll later need in public. Every fluent speaker you admire once stood exactly where you stand today. Your accent was never something to hide. It's proof of everything you've already overcome. Struggle isn't the opposite of skill. It's the very material skill is made from. And somewhere inside you, a confident, fluent version of yourself is already waiting to be trained into existence. You didn't watch this video to learn one more fact about English. You watched it because some part of you already knew the truth. Change was always possible. You simply needed a clear path forward. Now you have one. So here is what you do the moment this video ends. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now, speak one sentence out loud about your day, your dream, your reason for wanting this. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be spoken. Then do it again tomorrow and the day after. Not for 3 hours, just 5 minutes, the same 5 minutes that, 1 year from now, will have quietly rebuilt the way you speak and the way you see yourself. The version of you who speaks with confidence isn't going to arrive by accident. You're going to train them into existence. One sentence, one rep, one day at a time. Start now. Your voice has waited long enough